let me invite you. Don't send one yet. I sent one to you. Accept that one real quick. There we go. God,
there we go. We got it.
Lord, I don't know why it messed up. Sorry about that.
Oh, no worries, boss. No worries. We're all good.
That's Instagram, I bet. That's probably what it is. Alrighty. Okay, now that kind of messed up a little bit there, but we got it. We're still on time, right?
Exactly.
Right.
I mean, what? We're like 3-4 minutes late. We'll be fine.
Yeah, of course. All right. Well, I'm gonna do the intro then, since everybody's still coming in. I sent it out.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm just trying to invite a bunch of people right now. Be like, all right, everybody, we need you.
Yeah, I know, right? It's like y'all were here for the other guys, for the lower people. Now we got the big dogs up in here. We need something up in here.
Exactly. All right, there we go. There's about 10 more people invited.
Okay, yeah, I'm gonna invite one more person as well, real quick.
Nice.
I know who to do. I'm gonna invite the whole squad up in here.
Hey, Crystal, what up? Yo.
Cleaner said he was probably going to sleep, so it feels so. I think he's gonna be out of it.
That's too bad. Well, we miss him. Hey, Ann, how you doing? Thank you so much for joining.
Why don't we right now? Why don't we just say our highs? We'll just say our highs, and then we'll get started. All right.
Got him. Let's do it.
Alrighty then. Yeah, I got the MLG horn for you, buddy. So, all right.
Hey, Natasha, what's happening? How you doing?
Hey, I just tapped in with her a couple days ago. She helps you promote with your new song, correct?
Yeah. Oh no, she helps me promote on all the videos, on all the songs. Yeah, she's like my Natasha is like the first one that I found, and she's like my main go-to. She's fantastic.
All right, yeah. Shout out to her then. We got that shout out horn. That's what I call him, man.
Yes.
Shout out horn.
Yeah, we got Jessica Ann also on here as well. Thank you so much for saying hi. Thank you for being here.
Yeah. So, so welcome to Cooking It with Kamikaze. We got the R.P.G. Red, Purple, Gold in the building. Why don't you introduce yourself? I mean, I've already did it, but you introduce yourself.
No, of course. Hey, how you doing, everybody? It's your boy, R.P.G. Red, Purple, Gold, coming to you live. I'm here with Kamikaze, the Beat King, just putting it down, doing some work. So really excited to be here, man.
All right, yeah. I'm gonna put some music in the background. I'm gonna go put one of your own songs, "Dreaming."
Love it.
All right, so welcome to the interview. I'm glad you made it. Glad you came.
What up?
Yeah.
All right.
It's your boy.
So as you know, we talked about earlier about all the questions that we're gonna go over. Hey, what's up, Cleaner? Glad you can make it. Tell us a little bit about yourself, like how you got the name.
Yeah.
Just tell us a little bit about yourself.
No, of course, absolutely. That's a great question. So with my name, I actually ended up getting that from the colors of my fraternity when I was in college. The Sigma Phi Epsilon fraternity colors are red, purple, and gold. So that is kind of like where the initial that's just kind of like where the initial, inspiration came from, because it was a really big deal for me when I was in school. Being a part of the fraternity was a big deal. That was, where a lot of my time was taken up then. So once I really kind of decided to move forward with the music, I was like, well, RPG, it's easy to remember. It's just 3 letters, and it also means other things as well. So if like a random person was looking up some RPG game, well, they might just happen to run into my music just because. So it's like an added benefit.
Yeah, that's a good benefit. I would love one of those. All right. Okay. Tell us a little bit about like your background, your history of like, have you always been into have you always when you were a kid, have you always wanted to make music? Like, what got you into making music? Like.
Totally. So, I mean, I think it's several different things, but one of the things that's like the main piece of it is that I was actually born in Colombia in South America. So I have, I always just make a joke of like, oh man, I've got that Colombian blood running through me. So it always feels like I've got a chorus going in my head, or I've got, some beat or some instrument just kind of making noise, in my head. So I always feel like have music around me a lot, but I've been singing and doing different things, all almost my whole life. And I have played, you know, the guitar, the drums, the saxophone, you know, so I've always really been into instruments as well and just very musically inclined to a general way. But I was in, you know, different bands and things in high school and, you know, kind of would rock out sometimes with like my fraternity brothers and whatnot, some of the guys in the house that like to play instruments as well. So we would get little, you know, bands get together and, you know, just kind of rock out sometimes. So that was a lot of fun. But I really kind of started going more hardcore serious into really wanting to make, you know, music more of a general reality about 2012 once I started like writing hardcore. And then in 2016 once I really said, I'm making the, you know, like I'm pulling the trigger to say, yep, I'm going to make this album and I'm going to get it released. So, of
course. All right. Yeah. Now tell us how many. Okay, tell us a little bit about like your like. Did your family support you with all like growing up? Like, did they ever like help you with this career, or did you do it all your own?
Yep.
Friends.
Good question.
Right.
Really good question. So yes, that my parents have been in 100% support of it the entire time. You know, they were the ones that you know really pushed me to you know get into music in the sense of like, oh, you know, go join band and you know learn how to play instruments. I think it's really important because I was you know big into sports and soccer when I was young, and so this was kind of the creative outlet you know on the side of the sports outlet. So. Yeah, so I mean, I've definitely been, you know, I definitely love doing it. My parents support everything that I do. It was awesome when I first was making my first album. You know, you'll have like those maybe like 2 or 3 people that you're okay with, willing to say, okay, this is something brand new I'm doing. Would you be willing to like hear a first draft of some of these things? And my parents have heard a first draft of every one of the songs I've ever done. So it's been pretty cool.
Yeah, so they were the first, they got the first taste of R.P.G. All right. They got to hear the verse of R.P.G. All right. What was your first experience with music? Like, was it like I know you kind of like touched a little bit about that, but tell us a little bit more about your first experience with music.
Totally. Ooh, good question. So I think for me with music, the first one that I can remember that was a big deal was I was probably in, I don't know if it was like, it was definitely before elementary school, but it was one of those things where there was a Michael Jackson song that had come out at the time, and I was going to be singing that live at this concert. And I think it was sort of one of those things, because I remember like going in and like practicing with the band teacher. We were going to be doing the performance, and so, and I remember doing the performance and like everybody was like, oh my God, like I did not realize you could sing like that. And so it was just super cool. That is the first experience that I remember. I was probably about 4 or 5 then.
Okay. So would you consider yourself a musician or a singer or a rapper, or what would you consider yourself exactly?
You know, that's a good question. I probably would say a musician overall because while I can sing well, I would never consider myself a true singer. And while I can rap to an extent, I would never also consider myself like just a straight rapper. So I probably would have to go with artist just because I like to try to incorporate, you know, all sides of it when I'm doing my music. So
yeah. All right. Who or what inspires you, like in music, like who or anyone? To be honest.
Totally. So when it comes to music people specifically, my biggest, so like when it comes to more the hip hop and R&B side, Rick Ross is my hands down, and there will be so many of my fraternity brothers that'll get so mad at me when I say that Rick Ross is like my favorite rapper of all time, but he is like one of my fraternity brothers, Jesse. He got me connected to Rick Ross when he had just released his Deeper Than Rap album, and it was like the first time where I had seen a rap album with a dude that's wearing this amazing 3-piece suit. He just looks like such a boss, and I was like, whoa, okay, we're talking like penthouse level rap here. This is awesome. I love this. And so, and then the album was just incredible. So ever since I heard that, I've been obsessed with him as a general artist, but in the music that he makes. Like every time he comes out with a new album, it's just, there's something about it that's just a little bit better than the last one that he did. So I love that about him and his consistency. But other people that I really like, I know it's kind of weird too, because a lot of some of the original people that everybody always says, like Tupac and Biggie and all those, like I know those guys, but I wasn't listening to hip hop and R&B when they were famous. and really popular at the time. I was more into rock music then. So a lot of the people that everybody usually point to is like, oh, they're big inspirations. To me, they weren't technical inspirations for me because I wasn't listening to that type of music at the time. So, you know, so for me, it would be something like maybe like Jeezy, or you know, some of those artists where it's like they were in and around the time, but maybe they weren't like the true OGs like you had in like the 80s and the 90s. So
yeah. Sorry, I have to turn on some lights. It's getting dark outside.
no worries.
Starting to storm.
But yeah, but
There we go.
also too, on top of that, like I do actually take a lot of like rock inspiration into my music as well, just for the sense of like I take how I create my choruses a lot from rock songs. So it's like I feel like I want to hear that like crescendo up to a chorus, and then boom, you have those like dual hi-hat crash rides, like you smash down on them, and then you go into a chorus. So I always want to feel like I have like this build up to getting to the next part of the song, and that it's like when you get to it, boom, like you're being taken on a ride. So
definitely, yeah, most definitely. You got your colors up in here. All right. So,
there we go.
Yeah. So, okay. So, all right. That's actually a good background there then. All right. Do you, what song was most difficult for you to write? Like, tell us a little bit about like that. Like, how many singles have you put out?
Yeah.
Are you working on anything new? What's up?
I am, yeah. So right now I'm currently working on my fourth in-studio album. That is going to be called The Decadence. Right now I released the first single for that on Mother's Day weekend. I just got the next single into my distribution company, so that should be hopefully coming out within the next 4 to 6 weeks or so. And I have done probably about 30 songs or about like 30 to 35 songs like overall, because each album has been around 13 to 14 songs. And right now, I mean, so within the last probably 2-3 months, you know, I got introduced to you and to Cleaner and a bunch of, you know, these, like just making a lot of new connections that I had not made up to that point. So now it's also, you know, kind of like getting new beats from you guys, and like also starting to work on songs from that as well. So I mean, I've definitely put out quite a few, but in general, when it comes to like the hardest type of songs to write, I think for me, probably one of the hardest ones that I had to write was actually on my second album, and it was a song that you and I have chatted about before, but it's called Let Me Go. And so it was a song that I wrote specifically right around the time of Mother's Day a few years ago, because I had written a song on that album for my birth mom, for my adopted mom, and then my adopted father as well. And the song that I wrote for my birth mother was called Let Me Go. That was probably the hardest song that I've ever had to write, just because of the amount of like just emotion and all the years that had been kind of like building up to and everything. So there was a lot of just, what am I going to say? Like, how is it going to come out? Am I just going to kind of let it flow, and whatever happens, happens? And that's basically what I did. And, you know, it is definitely like a very serious message, you know, in the sense of, you know, the idea of the song is like, oh, why did you let me go? Like, when I was born, you know, like the first line in the song says, you know, oh, when I was born, you pushed me right from your side. Like, I couldn't have been alive for more than a few minutes, and I don't need this type of a thing. So that was probably the hardest song that I've ever had to write, just simply for the fact that there was so much of like, it was like 30 years in the making of, you know, all of this stuff built up. So that was definitely the hardest one I've ever had to do.
Yeah, I got it playing up in the background a little bit. We'll give it a little taste.
Nice.
You hear it well? Good song.
Yeah.
Y'all can find this on YouTube, R.P.G. We'll send out the details.
Yeah. So okay, that was a really, I mean, but at the same time though, like when I look back at that song, I'm very, very proud of it, because it's got such a good, like it's got such a good message behind it, but at the same time you are having to ask some questions. But like one of the last lines in the song says, you know, but I just want you to be able able to come back home. Like at the end of the day, it is
Yeah.
still all about love, and it's still about like the family. And even though I don't know technically who she is, you know, like even though there
Yeah.
were times in my life maybe where I was more upset by that, or you know, just going through different type of emotions, I know at the end of the day that when I was writing that song, it's like I ended it perfectly because I'm like, yes, okay, I'm telling you some things that are real, but at the end of the day, I just wish I knew who you were.
Yeah, of course. I you mentioned your one of your newer songs. What like on your newer album on the Decadence? Do you have any songs like you could show us, like a little snippet maybe?
I do, yeah.
Or
So the newest single that I released is called Panoramic Roof. And that was the one that I released on Mother's Day, so you definitely can feel free to play that in the background as well. But that's probably my biggest single that I've released up to this point. You know, people are really,
yeah,
really liking it, and they really like the sound. When my producer and I were making it, you know, a lot of music that was coming out at that time was kind of trying to strip away as much of the instruments as possible, and so it was basically just an
yeah,
808 beat, a hi-hat, a drum hit, and then boom, and my voice. And so that's what we tried to do with the song, and I added on like one other little kind of sound in there just to bring a little bit of something to, like a little bit of a melody to it. But that is
yeah.
the newest one that I did, and I love how that one came out because it was a total experiment when we started working on it. And then to hear the
Yeah.
final, like, and then to hear the final and be like, oh, yep, this will be the first single I'll release, was really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, this is the best one of the best songs I think. It's getting pretty good views. All right. Okay. Do you have like what is the most difficult thing about being a musician for you?
Ooh, that's a really good question. So I would probably say that the most difficult thing is something that you would never even think about, and it's coordination. Like
Nice.
just to be able to like okay, so in a general way, you know, so like let's just use you and I as an example. Like to be able to get this interview scheduled. I mean, even though it was just a couple of DMs in between you and I, and like trying to do the whole
Yeah.
thing, like there's still just the and then okay, what time are we going to do it at? What type of questions are we going to be going over? Did you want to do like a you know, interview before the interview just to feel
Oh
like, you know,
yeah.
like there's just all this
I've done that.
coordination. And when you are doing that in studio time and you're trying to be able to get all of these things set up,
Of
man,
course.
it is one of the most frustrating things
Time and
that you can
pressure.
be able to deal with, because it's always one of those where it's like I want to be able to try and, you know, be as open and available as I can and really try to like bend over backwards to make sure that everybody on my team has what they need. But then there's always that idea like, oh man, this all rests on my shoulders. Like
Yeah.
I'm the one having to be able to coordinate all of it. And even though I like it, because at least then I know that I'm trusting that, okay, well, if I helped it move through the whole process, then I know exactly where I messed up, or I know
Definitely.
exactly why it got there. But it is amazing how much time, even just to be able to just say, oh, Deshaun, when are we going to be doing our next recording session? The amount of coordination that goes into that, every time
Yeah.
blows my mind. Every time.
All right. Yeah. Also, everybody's watching. Thank you all for staying with us. Keep stay tuned still because we got some on the way. Be sure to share the live.
Exactly.
Everybody, so everybody can hear about this. Okay. Okay. I had another question.
Yeah.
Give me a second. Oh yeah. So like, crap, I forgot. Oh yeah. What was the last song you wrote about? Like, what was it about? Like, you said Panoramic Roof. Now, what was
Yep.
that about? Like,
Oh, good question. So Panoramic Roof is one of those that is a little bit more, you know, is a little bit more of kind of like, okay, it sort of says the title in the title, or it sort of says the name in the title.
yeah.
But basically the idea of it was I had, a couple years ago, I had bought a new car, and it actually has a panoramic roof in it. And it was sort of like me like sitting in the back seat one time and being like, wow, this is like really cool. And then there was a band that I had, you know, Jesse, that fraternity brother that introduced me to
Yeah.
Rick Ross,
Yeah.
he introduced me to this other band last summer, and I absolutely like fell in love with them. And for some reason, like they had a song that just they did that sort of like inspired
Yeah.
the thought process around this one. But basically, it is just the idea of saying like, you know, it's sort of that thought of, oh yes, like like, oh, yep, I'm just chilling here in my, amazing ride in my, my panoramic roof, just looking up at the stars and, just kind of like, oh, wow, like, look at, what I've been able to accomplish and, the good things I've had come in my life.
Definitely,
And so that's kind of
definitely.
more or less what that song is about. But I really did like the
Of course.
question about what was the last song I actually wrote about as opposed to just that I released. And that one
Yeah.
was actually really cool. So there was a guy that I ended up doing a collab with, and we haven't recorded the song yet, but we have it written down and we know what we're going to
Okay.
do.
Yeah.
But he was like, dude, you need to make a song playing off of your name. Like, make it about video games or make it about, like rocket propelled grenades or whatever, but like
Rocket propelled
utilize the
grenade.
actual song and actually do it. And so I was like, dude, that's such a good idea. So I actually ended up writing a video game song called Red Purple Games. And it's basically kind of like this idea of like, oh, if I'm a gamer and I wanted to talk about R.P.G. but utilize each different part of my name to describe something new about a game or about a part of like who I am as an artist. And
Yeah.
then I wrote this song called Red Purple Games, and it like references like Fallout and the Elder Scrolls and all sorts of different
Oh,
games
okay.
that
So
like
you
if you
gamers, you're a
recognize it, you'd be
gamer
like, okay, I like that. And so I'm also going to have that guy help me on the song as well because he's kind of like a big nerd like
then.
me as well. So it should be
Yeah.
really cool.
Okay, so I didn't know that he was a gamer at all, to be honest with you. Okay, that's
Yeah.
cool. That's good.
Yeah.
All right. All right. Well, okay, then what has been the biggest career highlight for you so far?
When it comes to music, I would say probably. I don't know, and I don't mean to like keep bringing him up all like in the sense, but we've been friends
Yeah.
for a long time, so a lot of our stories
Sure.
are connected. But Jesse, that fraternity brother of mine that introduced me to Rick Ross, he does. So his family, where I live in Seattle, they live like kind of outside of the city, and they've got this big house with all this land, and they
Yeah.
do like a summer concert series every summer. And this last one that I just did in August, which was my last live show, was probably my career highlight because it was my fourth time performing at what's called Bergfest. And this year was like the best performance I ever put on. I tried to incorporate like dancing and true like, like actually like trying to be able to have like specific choreography to each one of the songs that I was
Definitely.
doing and like have specific lines match up with like a movement that I was doing or whatever. And I
Yeah.
had some people come up after me, or I had some people come up after me and talk to me after I got done with my part of the show,
Yeah.
and they were like, "Dude, like, I mean, when you're coming to something like this, you never really know what you're gonna expect." But I
Of course.
never
Of
in
course.
my whole life would have expected somebody like you to just pop up on that stage. Like that was as good of a show that I've ever seen like anybody put on, even to like bigger ones that I've gone to. I was like,
Of course.
okay,
Yeah.
that's cool. So I thought that was probably my biggest highlight up to this point.
All right. Name someone? Who would you most like to collaborate with?
Ooh. I mean, obviously, I think I probably would have to go with Rick Ross. I would absolutely love to
Yeah.
collaborate and do something with him. But I mean, I think also too, one of the things that I really like now is just that ability to meet new people and like get introduced to new artists and to new producers and like, really be able to,
Definitely. Yeah.
really be able to make those new connections with
Sure.
new people. And I think that's something I'm finding out right now that I'm really enjoying is that even if they're maybe not somebody that, oh, I would have thought to want to collaborate with you previously,
Yeah.
now that I've met you and we've gotten to have a little bit of a relationship and we're starting to get to know each other, like
Mm-hmm.
when you get to have that and then be like, dude, do you think we should collab on something? Yeah, done. Like, let's go. So
Yeah.
those are always a lot of fun.
Yeah. Just to have that. All right. Okay. What is your songwriting process like? Like, just run us through that a little bit.
Totally. Good question. So when it comes to my songwriting process, a lot of times I am inspired by music because I'm listening to music all the time and I'm always, trying to be able to find, new artists or new albums that have come out. Like recently, I don't know if you saw one of the recent Joe Budden podcasts, but he was saying that like,
Yeah.
oh, the new Gunna album is like, he's like, oh, I think it's better than, the new Lil Durk and like, just talking about some of that stuff. So like recently I've been listening to the new Gunna album and Lil Durk to try to see, okay, does Joe Budden have a point or like what is my take on it type of a thing. So a lot of times I'm inspired by into like a song that I'll hear a beat or I'll hear some lyrics and I'm like, oh, bam, and it'll just kind of like get something, like spark some you know,
Yeah.
some neurons firing in my brain, and then like sometimes it will just be like they'll be like I'll listen to a song of theirs or like of anybody, and then they'll like say something, and I'll be like, oh yeah, and I'll just start singing something else, and then a lot of
Yeah.
times a whole chorus will come from that. Where I'll just be like hearing a song, and then it will inspire me in some way, and then I'll be like, oh yeah, and then da, 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 panoramic roof, boom, and then that's how it happens. So once I get a little bit of that
Of course.
inspiration, then I will just kind of start writing, and I'll be like, okay, if I now know I've got a general, kind of frame of reference of what I want the song to be about or what I got inspired by, now I kind of have like a general template of, okay, this is what the song is going to be about. Then I'll just kind of start writing and be like, okay, what type of things am I thinking about? Like what type of, analogies or whatever can I kind of come up with to this? And then a lot of times it will be, I'll just start,
Yeah.
and I do tend to write a little bit more formulaic in a way, because I think it does help me kind of keep things in place easier.
Of
So
course.
I will
Yeah.
try to do like your standard, like, okay, 4x4 chorus, 4x4 chorus, four
Yeah.
by four chorus, type of thing. And then I'll try to be able to mess with it after the fact. But in a lot of ways, I will try to be able to write out something, that's going to be a little bit more simple in the
Yeah.
sense of the layout, but
Of
then it
course.
helps me
Yeah.
create the songs faster. And then once I'm able at the point to where I'm in the booth and recording, then I might make little tweaks and, different things at that point too. So.
All right. Which song from your current or your any album is your personal favorite and why?
Ooh, that's a good question. So I would probably have to say it is going to be a little bit of a tie, but for me, if I had it, like if you had to make me choose, I would say that I think "Dreaming" is my favorite song that I have ever created,
Mine too.
simply for the fact that you and I have had this conversation before, but
Yes.
obviously I'm telling everybody that's watching now new for the first time. But in a general way, like when you're looking at that. And I'm sorry, I just saw that message that Cleaner popped in.
Yep.
What was your original question?
What song is your personal
My
favorite
favorite, yeah. So
and
with
why?
so with working with Ro, like when I first got introduced to her, and then she was like so willing to come on board with this music thing with me.
Yeah.
Like she has one of the most beautiful voices that I've ever heard. Not in the sense that because yes, she can sing very well and her voice is beautiful, but not because she has like the most beautiful voice, but just with the fact that she's from Bangladesh, that she has that
Mhm.
really incredible accent that when I
Yeah.
hear her get on the mic, it's like unlike anything I've ever heard before. So not only does she
Yeah.
have a beautiful voice, but she also has such an interesting voice that I'm like, man, like you just don't hear a lot of artists that give
Yeah.
this type of sound to it. And
It's
when we did
good.
that song, for me as an artist, I want to try to incorporate a lot of different type of sounds. And with that specific song, I was very much trying to be like, okay, I want to get a feeling of like that Middle Eastern style sound. So we put the sitar in
Definitely.
there. And I love that intro. Like it's way too long for most people. Like the song for most people
Yeah.
is way too long. I mean, it's closing in
Perfect.
on like 5 minutes. But I
Oh.
don't care because that's also not like the type. Like I'm not trying to sit here and make a bunch of songs at 2 minutes and
Justin.
12 seconds.
Yeah. You're
Yeah,
doing it the way you like how you
that I
feel it
want
should
to
be.
do.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
You're
so
doing you and
when we
not
did
what other
that
people want
song,
it to be. Yeah.
exactly. And when we did that song, everything about it, I loved the end, just the feel of everything. I loved that it was so perfect for a final album song. And I don't know, everything about it, it felt like, man, if I was going to hear a song at the end of one of my albums and I could just be able to create the most perfect thing, it definitely
Yeah.
feels like that's what I would have wanted to make.
Okay. Okay. All right. What is one of the very first songs you ever released anywhere?
Oh, that's a good question. So I actually did release a song years before I ever actually put my albums out. So again, that fraternity brother Jesse of mine, he has a younger brother who is into music much more in the same way that I'm into music. So
Yeah.
he is in a band. They do go to do live shows. Like they are very, very talented. And so I had you know, I've obviously known Shane, Jesse's younger brother, for, you know, almost as many years as I've known Jesse.
That's
But
exactly.
I had done a song with Shane, or well, he helped me record it. I didn't do the song with him, but
Of course, yeah.
Shane helped me record a song that I had done to a Rick Ross song
Mm-hmm.
that I would, because at that time I wasn't writing as much of like writing my own music. I was usually rewriting a lot of songs that were already out at the time, and then I would just rewrite to
Definitely.
different lyrics.
Yeah.
So that was actually the very, very first song that I ever released, and that was probably back closer to 2013, 2012, somewhere around there.
All right. All right. Now earlier you mentioned somebody, Deshaun. Now tell us who that is.
So Deshaun, so that's my producer. He is the same producer that I've been working with since 2016. So I am definitely one of those guys, you know, and I mean, a lot of guys are like this, but me especially, like, I'm very much like a team guy. I'm very much like very loyal to the people that I am around, that I work with, you know, especially in the sense that, you know, when you are doing music, and I mean, now maybe it's not always the same for on the producer side, because you guys are creating beats and melodies and you're using
Yeah.
instruments, but like when you are writing music and when you're working with people, and especially in the studio setting, there's so much emotion and there's so much, just, you're having to give a lot of yourself as the individual, and you kind of have to bear your feelings sometimes, and really kind of like, okay, you're going to see some things from me that maybe not everybody does get to see. So there's a lot of
Definitely,
that
yeah.
idea that, like, you have to have a lot of trust in between, you know, everybody in the
Of course.
studio, and you always have to have like, hey, you know what, it's not about anything negative, it's always positive and happy vibes, and, you
Definitely.
know, just good mental thoughts, like when you're in the studio, because
Positive
you
energy.
don't want
Yeah.
to be, yeah, you don't want to be
Don't
in
want
that
to. You don't
situation
want
where
to
it's
make.
like,
Yeah. You don't want to darken somebody else's day because you're having a bad day.
exactly.
Yeah.
And so when and so over the years that I've been working with Deshaun, you know, him and I know each other very, very well, and, you know, we've
Mhm.
been, you know, sitting in the same space together for, you know, 4, 5, 6, 7 hours on end,
Of
you know,
course. Yeah.
for, you know, at sometimes, you know, maybe, you know, 2, 3 times a week. And, you know, so I mean, you really do get to know those people really, really well. But I think for
Yeah.
me, it's so important because you're growing with that person as well, and you are getting those experiences at the same time. And when he is making beats for me, or when he's helping like do my levels when we're actually in the booth and
Yeah.
recording, it just feels like, okay, yes, I would be able to start this over with a new producer, or I would be able to say, oh, anybody who is working on beats could be able to help me with this. But
Definitely.
I've been working with him for so long that he just knows what to do without me
And he
needing to
knows
say
exactly.
anything,
Yeah. He
because
knows you. Yeah.
exactly.
Like
So
he's another part of you. Yeah. All right. Also, like I'm gonna say, seeing everybody. Be sure to share the
yep,
live. We got. We know who we got. We already. You don't even gotta say. We got RPG up in here, everybody. So
it's your
be
boy
sure to share
R.P.G.
the live. Share it to your brothers. Share it to your family. We got some more questions for you. Does anybody in the audience or the comments have any questions for RPG? If they do, just let us know and we will ask. I said, okay. Claire says, unrelated to music question for RPG. Are you a coffee fan? And if you are, what are your opinions on iced coffee? We got all questions. We
I
accept
love
all
that.
questions.
Okay, way to go, Cleaner.
Everything
I love
about
that. It's a good
RPG.
question. Weirdly enough, amazingly enough, for being Colombian, I am not much of a fan of coffee. Like, I will have a cup in the morning, and that's about it. But having too much caffeine for me really does kind of like get me like that little like tweaky feeling. I don't really like that. But I also do have a pretty big like issue with like, not with sleeping, but if I have too much caffeine in the morning, especially on the weekdays, it messes up my sleep pretty bad. But iced coffee to regular coffee, like, I am technically a little bit more of like just one cup of, you know, black coffee every day, and boom, that's all I need. So I usually don't do iced or put, you know, stuff in it like creamers or sugar or whatever, just because I don't know. I just kind of like got used to it as just, you know, just black coffee. But I will say though, I do love getting iced lattes, chai tea lattes. Those are very, very good.
Okay, okay. Everybody in the comments, if you keep asking questions, I got one for RPG. Where do you
Okay.
see yourself musically in 5 years?
Ooh, you know, I mean, that is a good question, because I will say that, and again, you and I have had this conversation, but
Yeah.
you know, for everybody that's in the audience, like, more has happened to me in my music career in 6 months of 2023 than it feels like it's happened in 5 years previous to that. And, part of it was, part of it was, yeah, exactly. No, Ghost, I know. I am, I'm not at home right now in the exact moment, so I don't have my hats to be able to wear, but I definitely thought about bringing it today, so I
Yeah.
could have it ready to go for the meeting. But yeah, so,
Yeah.
but yes, okay, but I apologize. Say your question one more time.
I don't know. Oh, where do you see yourself musically in 5 years?
Yeah, 5 years. So like I will say that like it feels like I've had more happen to my career in the last 6 months than the last 5 years. And I recently had gotten connected, with this, We One Kind, One Flame, conglomerate group that I just recently got connected to, and they're talking about live shows and merch and all these different things. And in 5 years, I would love to be. And now I don't even know if this is possible, but I would love to be like a weekend warrior of going to different locations throughout the country, doing live shows, and then coming back
Yeah.
and then just working throughout the week to then repeat the process to then go right back to it. Because like one
Yeah.
of the things that I do love doing live shows and I do love performing live.
Okay, so you did that.
Um,
Yeah. Right.
and
Yeah.
so for me, it's like, because like I was saying, like with the Bergfest that I just did over the summer, like I'm trying to incorporate, choreography and,
Definitely.
dancing and doing specific things where it's like, man, I am just a solo guy, but I want to look like I'm part of like a boy band out there. Like I'm doing every single piece of it. And so that's really important for me. But because I know that I want to try to incorporate those things, like I feel like I do have the ability to at least make it happen because I don't have a lot of responsibilities in the sense that, yes, I could be able to go away every weekend to do these live shows because I don't have a lot of things that I have to be responsible for other than myself. So I kind of get to say yes to anything and everything that I want to. So I feel like in
Yeah.
5 years from now, I will be wherever I want to be because I can always say yes to doing it.
Okay, then. Okay, I didn't know you did live shows. Okay, what has been your favorite performance or tour so far? And a follow-up question to that. And if also, if you could play in any venue in the world, where would it be? Or what would it be?
Ooh, nice. Okay, that's a good question. Like we were talking about earlier, I think probably still that performance that I did in August is the best one that I have done yet. Now, one of my goals this year in 2023 was to do even more live shows. I haven't gotten anything like nailed down yet, but I am in the process of, trying to see what I can be able to do. So hopefully in 2023 there will be more like live shows that don't just involve, because this is one of my, fraternity
Yeah,
brothers that
exactly.
I know and he's putting on the whole thing. But that absolutely was my best show that I have done and put on up to this point was the last one that I just did in August. But if there was a venue that I could be able to go to,
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember if it's Wembley Stadium, but whatever that
Ooh,
stadium
yeah.
was that they did the Live Aid concert that Queen performed at in the 80s, that
Oh,
venue
yeah.
I think would be amazing just to be in that place where it's like to think of the amount of people that were there during that Live Aid show. Like I think that would just be an incredible place, but also because of all of the history that's there as well. So that's probably
Definitely.
where I would go.
Okay. How do you manage to maintain musical integrity while being commercially successful?
That's a really good question. I would
That's
say
not all
for
of your
me,
questions.
no, yeah, yeah, a lot of these are really, really good. So for me, I would say that one of the things that I actually need to try to become better at is
Definitely.
making a little bit more less like because a lot of the music that I make does tend to like, and not in any way like, like if like my music is like smart and other people's is unintelligent. That's not what I mean by any means, but
Oh,
it's more
yeah,
like
yeah,
it feels like I'm always trying to make some big grandiose statement or that I'm, trying to be able to get across like too much
yeah.
of the songs that I make feel like they're all trying to be versions of You know, they're all trying to be versions of Take Me, or like Let Me Go, or, you know, like some of those ones that it's like, oh, every song I make has to have some level of emotion to it, or some feeling, or some message that is like going to be inspiring for people. And I need to be better actually at trying to just make more commercialized music, because weirdly enough, I don't actually have a lot. So it's actually something,
Definitely.
almost to flip your question on its head. It's something I actually need to get better at, is trying to become more commercialized.
Of
But I think
course.
for
Yeah.
me individually, I would be able to like stay away from that feeling of like, oh, like I've sold out, or like, oh, all I do is just churn out, you know, a bunch of nonsense music for, you know, 13-year-old kids to forget about in 5 minutes. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's because I don't know how to write like that very well, almost, that it
Yeah.
keeps me from doing it, because it's like, man, I wouldn't even know what to talk about in the first place, because, you know, some of these oh yeah, like, oh, I'm just, you know, oh, I'm on a, you know, I'm in the hood with a bunch of girls, and, you know, we're being
Definitely.
ridiculous. I'm like, shoot, I don't know how to write stuff like that. Like, that's not my
Nah, because
story.
you don't
Like,
live that life. You don't live that life. You live a different life. You live
exactly.
a
Yeah.
fun life, and you have some struggles, and you rap about that. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
All
So, I
right.
mean, but at the same
Yeah.
time, I need to get better at that, because it is something that I do notice, especially like just in the sense of like the length of my songs. I need to get better at that too. I need to stop needing to make every song be 3 to 5 minutes long, and
Well,
figure
I
out
mean,
how to make some that are, you know, 2 to 3 minutes at the
yeah,
most.
because Americans, our minds have, ever since with all these new hip hop and everybody, our minds have shrunk a little bit, and so our attention span isn't as good as it used to be. So now
Yep.
we'll usually stop around that 3 minute mark. It's like, all right, this song is getting too long. Yeah, Americans want that punchier stuff. Yeah, I feel that.
Totally.
Okay, then I have a good one for you. Welcome up in here, Kate. Do you know her? I'm guessing.
Yes.
Got all the girls up here. All right. Do you have any advice for aspiring musicians? Be sure to share the
Um,
live.
I do, yes. And Cleaner actually kind of made a reference to this yesterday in his interview, and I think it was so well stated, and just a beautiful sentiment, is the idea that you don't want to, you don't want to not put it out. Like, you want to be able to put the music out, because a lot of times, for a
Yeah.
long time, maybe for years, you are going to be the only one as the artist that has the vision of where you can be able to go.
Yeah.
Because, like,
Yeah.
even working with my producer, or with, you know, like with Birdie, with my camera guy, like the people that are on your team that you think would be there and be able to also be that person to push you and to keep you going and to keep that
Hmm.
momentum up,
Yeah.
they're not going to. Like, it's not going to happen. Like, you at the end of the day have to be the one that has that own individual, like, fire
Willpower.
burning inside you, that, oh,
Yeah.
you are
Definitely.
going to want to do it regardless of the fact. Like,
Yeah. Your willpower. Yeah.
I could have no fans, but I still would want to make music, because music is that important for me,
Yeah.
not
It's
the
the
need
willpower.
for the fame after the fact. But because that is also true, you can be able to get to the point where, oh, like, I'm getting to the spot now to where the people that know me or have known me for years, they will call me Jeremy, but there is a segment of people now that do not know who I am, other than, oh, that's RPG. Like, oh yeah, like,
Definitely.
so there are some people that only know
I'm one
me
of them.
as
Yeah.
the artist. So then I feel like that is at a different level, that, okay, it's not that it's every single person, but that you do
Yeah.
have a specific segment of people who don't know you at
Yeah.
all,
Yeah.
but
But
they
just know
know you
you.
as the artist. So
Yeah.
there is going to
Beyond
be
different
that
levels. Yeah.
on there too.
Yeah. Of course. All right. This is the two-parter here. What
Okay.
was the best advice someone gave you when you were starting as a musician?
Okay. Okay. So I will admit, like, within my friend group, or just in a general way, like, I am the one that does music. So there isn't a lot of, like, you know, people that were able to give me, like, maybe musical advice. But one thing I will say
Any
that
advice?
I did
Yeah.
get is a good just piece of general advice,
Of course.
you know, was from my parents, when I first was starting this. And, you
Hmm.
know, I think with them, you know, because it's your parents, it's just always a little bit more of like, okay, like, Like
connection, yeah.
I'm not afraid by anything that you have going on, but this is something
Oh,
brand new. I don't know anything about it. Like, just be
yeah, it's a
careful.
little bit of a shock. Yeah, just
Exactly.
they want you to be they want you to be safe
Yeah.
in doing what you want.
And
Yeah, because it's news
so
to them.
one of the pieces of advice that they gave me at the beginning was just, when you are, going to be able to like be starting that relationship off when you're working with somebody new, especially like the producer, artist dynamic. They had told me, they were just like, make sure you have a lot of good questions for him. Make sure you feel like, when you are figuring out what you want to be able to do, that, you are going
Yeah,
to, that you are going to be able to, in a general way that you're going to be able to feel comfortable about the person that you're working with, and that almost in a sense, like you interviewed him enough to feel like, yes, I want to bring you onto the team as somebody that I can trust and be able to, really build and grow and be able to make new experiences, in the sense that, oh, if you listen to the first album, Rooftops and Skylines, and what Deshaun and I were
yeah,
doing then, as opposed to some of the music we're doing now off the Decadence, I mean, you could look at that and being like, wow, that doesn't even sound like the same duo right there. It sounds like you
yeah.
guys have completely grown with that. So I think that was one of the best pieces of
Of
advice that
course.
I got at the beginning was, hey, the people that you work with, make sure that you have, that they're people that you trust, and that they are going to be able to help you also grow. Like, it's not just about the fact that they can get it done, but in the moments where you also need to get pushed, to be like, okay, but are you doing enough? Are you,
Definitely.
giving as much of yourself as you could? Are you really trying to push to get these shows, or blah, blah, whatever?
Yeah,
That's also important as well. You need that in your life a lot.
definitely. All right, Cleaner has a question.
Okay.
I'll save my second part for
Okay.
this after this. It says, he has a question for R.P.G. Do you find yourself having struggles being an artist, having the brain of an artist? Has it hindered you in any other ways of your life?
Um, okay, Cleaner, that's a really, really good question, bro. I love that. So,
Spam the heart, people. Everybody, spamming a heart emoji in the comments,
right.
please.
Oh, yeah. Yes, definitely do. So
Red,
in a
purple, gold
general
hearts.
way, yes. I mean, there is definitely some struggles with being an artist, because I think that in a general way, you look at
Yeah,
things a lot different, because as a creative, where you're always thinking about, oh, what am I going to be making, or what am I going to be, what's the next thing that I'm going to be doing with somebody? I think that there is this sense of you're maybe like overthinking things too much of the time, because you're
yeah,
always putting this creative spin on everything. But I
yeah,
will say too, though, that when it comes to individual personal struggles, it is also one of the best outlets, because like, you don't always maybe have the opportunity to go and talk to that super important close person about it, or like especially for me. And I think Cleaner had kind of stated something similar yesterday in his interview, that there's also something to be said as well about like the people that are the closest to you, like your parents or whatever. Like, if you're going through struggles or different things, like,
yeah.
okay, yes, you want them to know, but man, like, they're still your parents. Like, they're maybe going to be taking it even harder,
Of
if they know
course,
that you're going
yeah,
through stuff. So it's like, there's also that as well, that it's like, okay, use that, musical outlet as an outlet to be able to maybe just get some of the initial emotions off of your chest, and to be able to release it out of you. And then
yeah,
you can at least maybe have some more of that thought process put down on the page. You kind of are able
yeah.
to get your emotions wrapped up a little bit more, to where, okay, now at least I have it to where I can view it and
Yeah.
look at it. And it's not just inside of me, just, eating me alive type of a thing.
All right. I got another question about. Can I give me a drink of my drink real quick?
Mhm.
Everybody in the comments. I got some milk here, but if y'all got something to drink, stay hydrated, people. Please stay.
Yes.
That's important. Stay hydrated, everybody. Give them something. Tell them that. Tell everybody that they need to stay hydrated. They need some. They need a PSA from R.P.G.
Shoot. Okay, let's see. Looks like Ghost might have just put in a question. Let's
Yep.
see. Did you say, okay, what was this question? Because I saw it and then it just was like it went away really quick.
Oh, I got it. He says, I got it right here. I'm gonna also have some people come on and ask questions too, if that's all right. He says, I got a question for RPG. What kind of rapper genre do you feel you are? Gangster rap, trap rapper, what? That's a good question,
Um,
Ghost.
so that's a really good question, Ghost. Great question. So in a general way, I would probably say that I almost consider myself almost more of like a pop rapper, as opposed to more like trap or gangster rap, just because especially when it comes to gangster rap, like I don't really have a lot of that background in my life, so I don't really usually have a lot of like direct,
Yeah.
like true experience or something that I can be able to like actually utilize as experience to write off of. But for me, like a lot of the music that I made, so like my first album was called Rooftops and Skylines. This new album is called The
Yep.
Decadence. My last album was called A Rare Breed. Like that is the type of music that I like to make. Like kind of how I look at it is I look at it
Your
as like
point of view.
penthouse rap or like, rooftop rap. Like you
Pimp rap.
like it's like exactly like
Luxury.
I want to be the guy that is singing up on top of the tallest building in the city,
Yeah.
overlooking
Not
everybody and just
just
knowing and
glitzy.
understanding that everybody is looking up at me and being like, damn, look at that. Well, look at what he's doing. How did he get all
Yeah.
that? What did he
You
do?
wanna
Boom.
yeah.
Like, I want to be able to follow along with that. So that is kind of
Yeah.
the music that I like to make. Like, it doesn't always have to be positive, but I usually do like to try to be able to have, like, that feeling of some type of, like, inspiration or that sense of, like, oh, man, I really love what this guy's doing. I love what he's putting down. And
Yeah.
I would want to see the guide steps of what he did to get to the point that he's at.
Yeah. Everybody spam the red, purple, gold heart down below, please.
Ah,
We need some more of those up in the
PG.
chat. Yeah, all right. Now that for that one question I asked about the best advice, the second part is, what was the worst piece of advice someone gave you when you were starting out as a musician?
Ooh, that is a really good question. Okay, worst piece of advice.
I got good questions.
Yeah.
Got a couple more too. Yeah.
Oh man, that is that is a good one. I mean, I don't know if I've ever had like something that I felt was like directly just like blatantly bad advice.
Yeah.
But I will say though that one thing, and I don't know if this was maybe advice, but I will say that for you as the individual, new experiences are going to come your way, especially once you start to make new connections with people and once you start to be able to just you move up to a new level and now these new now this person wants to do this thing with me that they didn't before, and now I'm getting new experiences or new opportunities for new experiences that you might not have before. So I think that one thing I can say for me is don't ever be afraid to be okay with like keeping things held to a certain level where it's like, oh, now you've kind of moved up to this new level. Here, spend all this money to go get a manager or go, travel the country off of this, mixtape or whatever. Like it is definitely, one of those situations where, okay, you also need to be comfortable as you, as the individual, and don't get yourself wrapped up into the, oh, yep, I feel like I maybe have caught a little bit of a buzz or my name has now gotten to a new level. Oh, and now just get lost in that and just get yourself taken for a fool and played by everybody because you think you have a little bit of clout, so now you're just going to do nothing but act like, oh, man, Drake and me are on the same exact level. Like, that is something I definitely say about myself all the time.
All right. Okay. Was there ever a time when you thought about quitting music altogether?
No, never. Never.
All right. That's okay. We don't need any more detail on that one. All right. That's good then. Question: where is your biggest fan base? Is it in America, Colombia, where?
That's a good question. I would probably say yes, it is. In America would be where my biggest fan base is at this point. I am doing so, like when I do drop the albums and stuff, like I do pay for marketing that is, going to be sent out to other countries. But I would say at this point, though, probably the U.S. is still where my biggest fan base is.
All right then. How do you deal with creative blocks or performance anxiety? Or you don't have to answer questions you don't want to answer. Like.
Oh, no, yeah. Well, and say the very first part of the question again. So, because you said, like, stage performance, but what was the very first part of the question?
How do you deal with creative blocks?
Creative blocks. Okay. Yeah, that's a really good question. So when it comes to creative blocks, because you will get that from time to time.
I might have.
But at the same time, like I've also been writing for so long that a lot of times it's maybe not a creative block because I'm not writing anything. It's just more so that like I'll have to keep coming back to my music book where I have all of my songs in there that I haven't all the way finished yet. So like at times there will be songs that will get created because the inspiration hits me so hard that the song almost just writes itself. But then other times there will be songs that will take 1 to 2 to 6 months to write because like one of the things that I look at, and I look at life in a lot of ways in this way, that it's like, okay, it's not about needing to try to get everything done right now at this exact moment, because you're going to kill yourself by doing that. You spread yourself way too thin.
Yeah.
But that if everything you're doing, if you're always at least trying to just take out a piece of it, and okay, I started at 100%, well, now I whittled out 20%, so now I'm at 80. You come back to it a couple days later, and boom, 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 I just busted out another 7%. I got another 3 or 4 lines written, and then you just kind of keep coming back to it, and sometimes you'll get an inspiration there in the moment, and maybe you'll write, an entire verse or two, or maybe other times you'll just be able to bust out a line or two. But hey, you've now got 2 more lines done that you didn't have created before, and now you are that much closer to that song being done. So that, I think, is something that's also really important as well when you are having those moments where maybe you feel like you're getting a little stuck on the writing. Go back to other songs that you're working on, get your creative juices going on those. A lot of times it will help with the creative juices even more on the song that you're stuck at, because maybe you just needed to get the juices flowing regardless if it was just for that song or not. Maybe you just need to get inspiration from somewhere else.
Clayton has another question. Boy, Clayton's got the questions today. You can tell he's not sluggish. Said, could you pick a top 2 genres to put your style of music in, or do you think you do not necessarily fit into a genre?
That's a good question. I would say probably for me, hang on, I apologize.
No, it's all right. Something happened.
No, it's just a work thing. I realized I forgot to cancel me.
Oh, you had a meeting?
No. I had scheduled one, and then I had needed to cancel it, and I just totally forgot to do it.
Oh. Is it because of this interview you're doing? Or?
No, it's not because of the interview.
I didn't want this interview to interfere with your work life.
You're good. No, you're golden. So I would say, like, in regards to the genres, like, I would say that I don't know if it's like maybe like a genre specifically, but because of the fact that I am Colombian, like, I absolutely love so many Colombian artists, and I absolutely love the flavor and the instruments that they add in there, and a lot of that extra like sound, like just that spice that a lot of those like South American artists will put on there. Like Bad Bunnies or Farruko's, people like that, or Farruko is my absolute, hands down favorite. Kind of what I would consider like from Mexico or South America, like, one of those favorite artists. So I think for me, I try to be able to do a little bit of a hip-hop R&B genre style, throwing in spice and just that extra added flavor of that South American style, extra just that Latin heat to it. Like, that's what I like to try to do a lot with my music. So I think for me, it's probably a mixture of Latin mixed with hip hop.
Yes. So Latin hip hop.
Yep.
Is what you.
Yep.
All right. That other thing he said was not a question. It was just an idea.
Okay.
Claire, you could say that for the end if you would. We'll have that. We'll have a little segment on that. Okay, I'm not gonna get into there's a question I had that how do you deal with the politics of the industry? But I'm not gonna get into politics right now. I don't think we should do that. But okay, here's a good one. What do you like to do in your free time outside of music?
Let's see. So outside of music, I love to play soccer. That is definitely one of the things that at least when it comes to the sports side, I do love that. I definitely will say I am definitely a gamer. I do love to game sometimes. Like right now, I'm playing through Diablo 4.
That just came out, didn't it?
Yep, just came out in June, and I'm really looking forward to Starfield that comes out in September. So,
Oh,
I
yeah,
mean,
pre-ordered that.
so that is definitely something that I like to do in my free time. But then outside of like that type of stuff, which would be more like, doing it on my own type of thing,
Yeah.
I have a lot of my fraternity brothers that are, in and close to where I live. Like some of them are as close as maybe 10 or 15 minutes away and,
Okay.
maybe upwards to 40, 45 minutes, for some of them. So on the weekends, that's what I usually like to try to do. Like I was talking a lot about Jesse earlier, like, him and I live pretty close to each other, so we try to get together, probably a couple times a month. And, he's doing, he does food, and he's also been on my first two albums with me, but he doesn't do music in a sense. But he definitely is very musically inclined, so I really do enjoy
Yeah.
spending a lot of time with him just in a general way, not just because we've been friends for so long, but just because we do have a lot, like just in general common, where we
Yeah.
do kind of do a lot of the same things.
Yeah, we redo the